Good morning, and welcome back to Comms Corner. I'm your host, Caitlin, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Jaylene about being a first-generation college student and the different struggles and adversities she's overcome to get here where she is today. Welcome, Jaylene.
Thank you for having me today, Caitlin.
So first, I wanted to ask you what your definition is of a first-generation student for those at home who may not know.
First-generation college student to me is someone whose parents haven't finished a degree or have received a degree from a four-year university and might be low income and can't afford to attend college.
So how has being a first-generation student personally impacted your journey to get to college?
I've always had that pressure on me from a young age, people telling me that I was going to go to college, that I had to go to college. But in the end, it was just me deciding that I wanted to learn, just to learn and have that opportunity. Yeah.
That's amazing. What has been your biggest motivator along your journey?
My parents, my family, definitely, once I graduated, seeing like the pride that they had and knowing that I decided to go to a four-year and continue on and have a better life that they wanted me to have.
That's amazing. Did you have any other resources that helped you along the way figure out how to apply in that process? Because I know that's something that a lot of first-gen college students, including myself, have struggled with.
I was fortunate enough that my school had the AVID program, which was a program for students to apply to be able to find scholarships and apply for colleges and to apply for programs like EOP that are available here at Sonoma State.
That's amazing. It sounds like you had a lot of really good communities supporting you along your journey. Have you found any communities here that have helped you with the transition to college life?
Yeah, definitely. I was fortunate enough to get accepted into the EOP program here at the Educational Opportunity Program. Apologize. And I also met a lot of people through, I declared from the very beginning, so a lot of the people I met are comms majors. They're really great.
That's awesome. I was wondering and curious about what classes that you've taken so far that have made this journey and going through this process worth it and have been the most rewarding for you.
Writing and journalism with Hillary Hanzi, she brought in a lot of speakers and gave us opportunities to kind of practice different things like blogging and social media posts and journalism, things like that.
That's awesome. Is that a path that you're interested in going into for career?
Yeah, definitely editing and publishing, maybe for books or for journalism.
Nice. What about that field piques your interest the most?
I like the idea of like investigating. For me, it's like politics abroad and like political crimes, things like that.
That's really interesting. Aside from all the academic parts of college and aspects, what has your college experience taught you about yourself personally as a learner and a person?
I'm a big procrastinator, so I have to schedule things. I have to create a Google Calendar and really like manage my time.
Nice. Time management is a big issue for, I know, a lot of college students, myself included. What are some tips and tricks that you have for managing time?
Use Google Calendars, use your iCalendar, use reminders, set deadlines, and start things in advance and outline.
Do you think that being a first-gen student has disadvantaged you in any ways where you didn't have these skills going into it and you've had to learn on the job at all?
I think because of the opportunities that I was afforded through AVID and through EOP, I had maybe a little bit of a step up. I went through a bit of a learning curve, but I adjusted. They really helped me adjust.
That's
to college
amazing,
life.
and I'm so glad that you've had that support. And I know that I need to wrap up soon, but I just wanted to ask you if you had any advice that you would like to give any other incoming students who might be first generation who are interested about getting more involved.
I felt really isolated my first year, so definitely reach out to people, talk to the person next to you, make friends with them. Not everyone's going to be your friend, but definitely try and make friends. If it's in your major, join clubs, join organizations on campus.
Well, I think that's amazing and very helpful advice. And thank you so much for being here today. I had a great time talking to you, and we will see you next week.
All right, hello. And we're here at Dance Talk, where we talk about dance, prance, and everything in between. I'm here with my guest today, Albert Corto. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Coito.
Coito. My apologies.
Close enough.
And you're a Sonoma State student, but more specifically, you're a dancer in the upcoming spring dance show. Now, I was hoping we could talk a little bit about that today.
Yeah.
For instance, what is your role in this show?
Well, obviously, I'm one of the performers in the dance show. We also, as performers, we help collaborate with the choreographers to help make their pieces meaningful and, get the message to the audience. And also just have a good time with them.
So, originally, before we talked about this, you mentioned that you were in 2 of the performances, but now you're only in 1. Why did that change happen?
Yeah, so being a senior and getting ready to graduate, in addition to being vice president of the Ultimate Frisbee team, I have a lot on my plate, and I just was not able to get into that second piece, unfortunately. So, yeah, just a lot of work cut out for me this last semester.
So would you say that the practices itself are very time-consuming, or is it the overall planning, or is it just each individual performance is just such a long, extended amount of time working on it?
All of the above.
Really?
It's really time-consuming, yeah. For example, the piece that I'm in, rehearsals run about 4 hours.
That is a very long time. Do
Yes.
you mean 4 hours every day or every week?
Not every day, just whenever there's rehearsal. Rehearsal's probably like once or twice a week.
Okay.
And it takes about 4 hours to rehearse because each of the pieces are around 7 to 10 minutes long.
And unlike some other choreographed pieces that we've seen at Sonoma, you are not choreographing them themselves. You're having someone else come in and working on this. How is the change different compared to when you choreographed your own piece to now essentially having someone else direct you?
Well, for fall dance, when we had student choreography, I think it was really fun to learn about that process and like figuring out what you need to do to get people to learn your movement, how you need to discipline yourself, working on your own costumes and stuff. So just experiencing that in the fall, and then coming into the spring, and just solely being a performer, it's definitely different. You do have like some say in what goes on because obviously you're collaborating with the choreographer. But it's just now it's kind of like, okay, you just need to do this now and do this and do this, which is nice. You don't have to worry about certain aspects of it, but.
So is that more of your preference then, or did you prefer when you were the one who was choreographing? Because there's a lot of creative differences going on there.
Yeah.
It's your vision compared to someone else's.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy choreographing because I like doing like funky, fun stuff, and then I get thrown into these like modern and contemporary pieces, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just not usually my style, so definitely a challenge.
And about how many students would you say are appearing in this spring dance show?
Well, there's probably around 10 to 12 per piece, and there's a couple of them that are in 2 or 3. So I would say there's a solid 20, 25 people in the spring dance show.
So you said per piece. How many pieces are there to this show?
1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5.
There are 5 pieces.
Yes, there are 5 pieces in the spring dance show. 2 of them are choreographed by professors from the department.
Oh.
And then there are 3 guest choreographers from the area.
And what can you tell me about the guest choreographers?
They're really cool. So we have Heather Fisher, who actually teaches jazz in the spring. She has her own studio here in Santa Rosa.
Oh.
And then we have Farrah McAdams, who teaches hip-hop regularly for the school. She's also done a lot of work in the community, working with kids in studios and also with different dance clubs and dance teams in Santa Rosa and Petaluma. And then we have Nzinga Woods, who is specifically concerned with African diaspora and working in the community with that.
Well, thank you for coming along. And where can everyone go and watch this? What are the dates that this will be happening?
Yeah, so this is running April 2nd through 4th and April 9th through 11th at 7:30 p.m. You can go to Ives 119. It's going to be good.
Well, thank you for coming on, and hopefully everyone out there goes and watches this show. I know I will be.
Cool.
Hi, I'm here with McKenna O'Hara today, and I'm going to be talking about her position in her sorority, Phi Sigma Sigma, as vice president. So, what made you want to join Greek life coming into college, or did you have any interest in it coming in it before?
I think like from the start, like in high school, like when I went to college, I knew I wanted to join Greek life. My aunt and my grandma were both in Greek life when they were in college, and I just heard a lot of stories about like things that they had done or ways that they had helped in their community, and that's something that I knew I wanted to do when I came to college.
Okay, so you definitely knew you wanted to join.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Did you have a specific sorority you wanted to join coming in?
Not really. I didn't really do too much research into one because I didn't want to like go into the process being like biased, being like, oh, like I want this one or this one's better. I wanted to keep an open mind and kind of just go through like the motions of it.
Okay. How was the process of Rush and all that?
The process was really good for me. It was definitely kind of scary. It was long, but it was definitely fulfilling, and I definitely recommend like to go through like I went through fall recruitment, and so that was more like a formal recruitment. But it gave me a chance to meet a lot of different people and kind of see a lot of different sides of people and sides to each sorority.
Okay. Did you do that freshman year?
I did. I went through recruitment 1 week of being a freshman.
Oh wow. Okay, that's cool. So what was the process like joining the sorority and then having this leadership role as vice president?
So like joining it was just talking to a lot of girls. I had a lot of different positions when I first joined. I've always been someone who wanted to be in a leadership or feels good being in a leadership position. I was a captain of my dance team when I was in high school. So like something like that's something that I knew I wanted to do was be in a leadership position. So I held a couple different positions before I got to this vice president position. And that process is basically you send in an application to our headquarters, and then there's like an anonymous nominating committee which gives us or like votes for who they want and which positions, and then through that the whole chapter votes whether or not to pass that board.
Okay. So what's your favorite thing about being vice president?
I think my favorite thing is just kind of like seeing how everything works in the chapter. As like a general member, like you kind of have an idea, but you don't see like all the nuts and bolts and how hard like eBoard works to make things happen and to make events happen. It is a lot of work.
Yeah. How is it managing like your schoolwork and like your social life and like all the other aspects of it with your sorority?
Well, I've always kind of struggled with time management, but for some reason, it just kind of works. I just got a new job, so doing that with my major, my sorority, it actually hasn't been too hard for me. I always use like apps and stuff to like remind myself when I have events and just kind of like prioritize each thing, like what's most important. Like if something isn't as important, I make sure like I need to put that on the back burner and focus on this.
What's your major?
I'm a criminal justice major.
Okay. How's that going?
It's good. I love it. I want to be a cop after college, so
awesome.
It's been really interesting.
Have you met like a lot of your good close friends throughout your sorority?
I have, definitely. I definitely think like there's a lot of people I wouldn't have met if it wasn't for my chapter, and like having those like that support system in college to me is really important because they definitely helped me through a lot of different issues that have happened.
Would you regret going in freshman year? Would you like recommend waiting a little bit, like focusing on school, or do you think it was good for you or like for other people to do that as well?
I feel like it's different for each person. For me, I think freshman year was good because I'm from Southern California, so I didn't know anyone coming up here. And so it kind of gave me a chance to like get to know people when I didn't think I would. But it definitely varies for each person.
Okay, so I think we're running out of some time. So what's some advice that you would give any students or future people that would like to be in a leadership role in a Greek life or just in general?
Just make sure you focus on what's important. Separate your personal from business in a way, because when you're in a leadership position, it's hard to like figure out like what is more important for the chapter and what stuff that you want to do or for, like for whatever you're doing in your leadership position. You just need to make sure you focus on the set goal and make sure you set goals in general so that people can do better.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all we have today. Thank you so much for talking with us. I hope everyone had or got some nice information.
Thank you.
Good morning. Today I'm here with Sydney Adams. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Sydney is currently the social media manager for the Study Abroad program here on campus. So can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to apply for this position?
Yeah, so actually, Hope, who is the study abroad coordinator, actually reached out to me and remembered me for being super organized while I was applying for my study abroad program. So she reached out to me and we did a Skype interview over winter break, and during that time she was just kind of asking me questions, asking me about what positions I would be interested in, and then she kind of brought up like social media manager, and I was like, oh, I've done that before with my sister. My sister is like a workout person online, so I was like, yeah, I know like how to work Instagram and I know how to like make flyers, things like that. So then from there she was like, okay. So then I got put on the marketing team, and then we just kind of like make flyers. We post around like 4 to 5 times a week. We try to post every single day. We usually have coffee and culture on Thursdays, which is a great way for students who want to study abroad to like come in and kind of learn about different countries and what they can do to like study abroad themselves. So that's what we kind of like focus on mostly.
Cool. Have you ever studied abroad yourself?
Yeah, so this time last year I was in Costa Rica. I was abroad for a semester, and I lived with the host family and did like all my Spanish classes there, took a dance class, all stuff like that.
How long were you there for?
I was there for around 4 months. My program was 4 months, but I stayed closer to 5 because I had family come visit me once my program was over. And then we just kind of like explored Costa Rica, went to like different beaches, and just like explored, did different waterfalls and ATVing, stuff like that.
Cool. So I know like a recent thing that has been going around is like the coronavirus. Like, has there been any like certain procedures that you guys have to talk about or do? Because I know we have some Sonoma State students who study abroad in specific areas
so
like that.
actually what's happening right now at work yesterday, I was covering a shift for my friend, and I got a phone call from a concerned parent asking about the coronavirus because there is a huge outbreak going on. And what's happening right now is we actually have protocols what to say to certain parents, saying basically to have their students keep checking their emails, making sure that like they're staying updated because students are being currently evacuated in South Korea and in Italy. So we have to make sure that we're staying on top of it to make parents kind of like settle down, not be as nervous.
So how long have you had this manager position for?
Close to a year now. Yeah, I started in August, so by the end of this semester I would have had it for over a year, almost a year, yeah.
What do you plan on doing like after this? Like, do you still plan on working for like something that has to do with study abroad and whatnot?
If that kind of happens, then maybe. But what I actually want to do is I want to be an editor for like movies and TV shows. So I kind of have a job already kind of rolling off of that back in San Diego. So I'm hoping that that's what I get to do.
Wow. So you're from San Diego. Has your family ever studied abroad or anything?
My twin brother studied abroad in Granada, Spain when he was a sophomore with his girlfriend. So that kind of like inspired me to go off and go on my own.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what is some advice that you can give to people who want to study abroad in the future?
Definitely come into the Study Abroad office. It's in International Hall 107, and all you have to do is come in and sign up for an info meeting. That's the first step that you have to do. And that meeting basically gives you the overall information of different programs to choose from, how long you want to go for, kind of helps you narrow down exactly what you want to do. And then from there, you would come into our office and schedule a one-on-one with Hope, but you could also schedule a one-on-one with one of the ambassadors, which is like what I am, and like multiple others. There's 9 of us, and all of us have studied abroad in different locations, so you can schedule a one-on-one with us and kind of talk to us about our experiences, because I know that kind of helps people, and then from there, you can just go study abroad. It's pretty easy, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hope I can study abroad one day. Well, thank you for joining us today, and that's all the questions I have.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Comms Corner. I'm Mia Sanchez, and I'm so excited to introduce to you all Megan Sullenberger. And she is here with us today to talk about her very unique major and what she plans to do with it. So thank you, Megan, so much for being here.
No problem.
Okay, so can you explain to everyone exactly what your major is? Because it's pretty unique and not a lot of students at Sonoma State have it.
So I'm actually one of the last 2 on campus to have my major because I'm actually a geography major, and my department has now combined with the environmental studies and the planning majors to create GEP, which is now the new major you can take at this school. And so my concentration is globalization and identity, so we just talk about a lot about how the world is all interconnected and how we just everything is connected. So like we just learn about that
No,
stuff.
that's awesome. Now, did you come in as a freshman with this major, or did it change?
I actually took a class my freshman year with Jeff Baldwin. It was called Human Geography, and that was like the main class that got me in my major. It just really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that I actually never knew about the world, and just like a lot of like human rights injustices and like that kind of stuff. So I just got really into like activism, I would say, and that class definitely got me to where I am right now.
Nice. Now, do you know exactly what you want to do with this major now after taking all these courses at Sonoma State? And you are a senior, so you are graduating.
Yes. I don't know exactly what I want to do. As it is voting day today, I am waiting for the elections to happen to see if I would like to work for the government, because I kind of want to like my boss, you know? And so if not, I was planning on either working for the state of California or like a nonprofit or an NGO abroad. That's also why I didn't study abroad. So, yeah, I just plan on working abroad.
Nice. So, you know, as this major, you have to take one of a pretty big course, which is called the Model UN course. So can you give a little bit more description of what you have to do for Model UN?
Yes. So Model United Nations, we actually head to New York in about a month, August 3rd through the 9th, and we represent a country. So Sonoma State is actually renowned for our Model UN program. And we're representing Germany this year. So we're doing a lot of work, and we actually just turned in our position papers. So that's when we're on these commissions or panels or just committees that talk about specific topics. So my topic is the Commission for Population Development. And so our topics talk about like disabled persons, rights of disabled persons, rights of elder persons. So we're trying to get them like not back into the workforce, but like get them in the community a little bit more. And then our biggest one is we talk about like the Sustainable Development Goals, and that is about just how to make the world more sustainable as our population is growing worldwide. And so we're talking a lot about food security. So we talk about how to implement these food security. So we're going to New York and we're representing Germany and talking to a lot of schools from around the world. So it's going to be very fun.
That's cool. Now, do you have like a specific role when you go to this trip on New York? Like, is that something that you're like designated to doing?
So everyone breaks up into their own actual committees. So we pretty much are modeling what a United Nations committee session would do. And so we get up, and what you do is you have topic order. So my topics were like older persons, disabled persons, food security. And so you want to get as many countries as you can on board with your topic order. So what you say is like 3, 2, 1. That's what we want to do. And then you try and get as many countries as you can on your board. So you go out and you lobby pretty much to the other countries. And then you start on this working paper. So you start talking about like resolutions or propositions that you give people that might help. And what's cool about this is that students actually have gotten their resolutions to the actual like United Nations building. Wow. And actual commissions from like the delegates around the world have like voted on it, and they have actually passed. So that's kind of like the end goal, I guess, but not like the actual final thing.
No, that's amazing. So I know we're running out of time, but quickly, do you give anyone advice on your major or working for government or anything like that? Just a little quick advice for anyone.
If you guys are ever actually interested in learning more how like humans are connected with environments, or if you're ever interested in learning about like how to plan a city or learning about climate change, is actually like the most interesting thing I've ever learned in my life, and that's really what made me go into my major. And I'm just very grateful that I've been awoken to this like major.
No, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it, and I hope everyone out there loves to hear your story. So thank you so much. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Chats with Chastain. My name is Claire Chastain, and today I have a very special guest, Peyton Cardoza. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. So Peyton here is a nursing student here at Sonoma State, and she has a rather unconventional job. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So I am a coroner technician at the Sac County Morgue. So my main job is I do autopsies for coroner cases.
Jeez. And I'm sure we can all assume from TV what this might, come with, what this job might actually do, but what are your day-to-day tasks? Like, what's your specific job?
So for the most part, what we do is, or what I do specifically, is when I come to the morgue, we get all suited up and we figure out what cases we have for the day. I get handed a stack of folders and I have to retrieve the bodies. We set it up. We have a special autopsy station in the middle of the morgue, and depending on what forensic pathologist I'm working with that day, I will set up the station, and then we'll go through the autopsy, which takes about an hour and a half. My job is to take samples, help with the dissection, and record and take measurements, and help manipulate the body for the doctor to determine cause of death and anything else they might need to find out.
Well, some people might find this gross, but does anything bother you, or is this just kind of a black and white, straightforward job?
So I've been doing things like this for long enough that nothing really bothers me. I've seen a lot of crazy things, but the only thing that really sticks with you is the smell is something you never forget. And it can be weird when you smell it when you're just around outside.
That's so weird. And so how did you get into this job? I know you're a nursing major, but how do you think this job has kind of helped you progress what you want to do?
Well, I worked as a TA in the anatomy program, and a lot of people don't know that we actually have cadavers on campus, and that's how I started out. I was one of the head dissectors there, and I live in Sacramento, and I came home for a break, applied for the job because it was something I'd been doing, and I got into it, and it's really, really good work experience. You're technically supposed to have an undergraduate degree to do it, but I had the experience from working as a dissector for the anatomy program, and they let me in, and hopefully it'll be something really good for a resume and really good experience, and there's not much that can surprise me or take me off guard at this point.
Nothing to faze you. You've seen it all.
Yes.
And you said, was your dad in the police force? Is that kind of how you got
So my dad is the lieutenant for Amador County Sheriff's Department, and he's really good friends with the lady who manages the morgue, and he was able to hook up that interview.
You got the connections. So has there been anyone that you've recognized? Because I know you're working with dead bodies, but is there someone that you were like, oh my gosh?
So the morgue that I work at, actually, so we get almost all of the coroner cases in North California. But one of my first weeks there, I unzipped a body bag, and it was one of my old coworkers from when I was 16.
How did you feel?
I didn't know the man well enough for it to be traumatizing, but it's definitely very, very weird to see someone that you know, because you work in a morgue long enough, and it stops looking like people and just kind of your job and something to do. And so when you're faced with someone familiar, it kind of puts your job in a weird perspective that you try not to usually think about it.
Mm-hmm. Has there been any cases besides that one where you knew someone that have kind of like bothered you or stayed with you other than just the normal routine job?
There was this one case where it was a homicide case, and he died by blunt force trauma from a hammer, and the man who killed him shoved the whole hammer handle was about this big, down his throat, and I had to be the one to remove it. I will always remember that.
Without sparing any more details, we'll wrap it up, but is there any advice to a nursing student or someone who might get this job in the same way that you did, that, maybe stay away from this, go towards this?
It can be incredibly hard to find medical experience, especially in the area, or especially trying to work in hospitals when you don't have a degree, so you just have to look for any way or any person that has an in to some sort of medical experience, because no matter, even if it's not nursing specifically, that kind of experience will help in a way that you will never expect.
Well, thank you again for being here, and we will catch you next time on Gory Chats with Chastain.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Comms Corner. My name is Daniela Clinton, and my special guest today is Emily Miller. Hi, Emily.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Emily Miller is the Vice President of the External Affairs for the Sonoma State Student Government. Could you tell us a little bit about your position?
Yeah, so my position handles everything off campus pretty much with campus relations. It has a lot to do with Rohnert Park, and then we also work on legislation that affects higher education for Rohnert Park, the state, and on a federal level.
What encouraged you to run for that position?
So actually, my sophomore year, I took a semester off to run a congressional campaign, and I felt really disconnected from campus, and so when I returned, I really just wanted to like get more involved on our campus, and since I'm a political science major, I was like, ooh, I'll do student government.
Was that your first time, like when you did, when you worked for that election? Was that your first time being involved in something with the government?
No, so I've actually been involved in the government since I was like 15. A recruiter came into my classroom my sophomore year, and then over the summer I was working on congressional campaigns as a volunteer, and then when the opportunity came up, they put me in the office as a field representative.
And how exactly did you get that opportunity?
The field representative for the office had been promoted to the state deputy, which meant that he was overseeing all of the campaigns in the state, and so he recommended me, and I was actually the youngest one in the country to do it.
Oh, that's exciting. What do you hope to do with like all these experiences that you have?
Specifically, I want to go into legislation and help everyone by doing that, writing laws and stuff like that.
So you're involved in various different ways. Are there any like particular changes you want to see in our community?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things right now is the way that students socialize with one another off campus. There's a lot of fines for student gatherings that violate the noise ordinance. And so things like that are really important to the students, and we want to be able to give the opportunity for students to have these healthy social gatherings. And so we've been working with Ron Art Park a lot to get some changes to that. Since they want to increase the fines, we want to be able to put something in place that really protects the students, like maybe a procedure before it goes to those fines. So like in Cal Poly SLO, they do a 20-minute warning, so they register the party with the people who throw it, and then when the police get a noise complaint, then they call the students and say, hey, we're coming in 20 minutes, and then the students have time to safely leave the party property.
What exactly are you doing to make the community aware of that and like those rules that you've heard of?
So in 2017, student government passed a Good Neighbor program, and then they never did anything with it. So my legislative affairs board, that's something that the vice president external affairs person chairs. Our committee was charged with picking this task up, and so since it was never heard from again in 2017, we're bringing it back right now and educating students on how to be a good neighbor, what does that include, and educating students on properly living off campus and stuff like that.
And how exactly are community officials reacting to all of this?
They're very excited. It's very interesting that our city council is actually alumni of some pretty infamous party schools themselves. So it's interesting how they react as an official standpoint versus what their college experiences were like. So they do want to work with us. They think that socialization as a college student is very important, but since their city is unhappy with it, they kind of have to go with protecting their residents first.
So do you see any big changes happening anytime soon?
The biggest change is they're going to change the fines to be more intense. That gets voted on March 24th and comes into law about a month afterwards. And these fines are going to be, instead of the 120-day posting for the parties, it's going to be 365 days, which is why we think it's so important to work with public safety, which is like the chief of police, to put these procedures in place to prevent the fines from being first, to have them be able to communicate with us before it gets to that point.
I know that you're a junior at Sonoma State, so I was just wondering, after you graduate, do you hope to still like work with Ron Art Park, this city, or just move on to different cities and bigger things?
I'm actually running for a re-election for the same position, so I really want to continue the work that we've started this semester and last semester, and really, hopefully, if I do get re-elected, be able to like move forward with the things that I've been working on. And then we also do like a transition thing in place. That means that like you write down what you intended to get done, and if it doesn't get done, the next person after you can pick it up and work on it. So I've been very specific in the language with moving forward for Ron Art Park.
Wow, thank you. Your involvement with our community is amazing, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Hi, and welcome back to Comms Corner. I'm here with Gina DiPiazza, the chapter president of Alpha Gamma Delta. How are you, Gina?
I'm good, Ashley. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being here with us today. So let's just get started. Okay. When did you go through sorority recruitment?
I went through primary recruitment my sophomore year of college.
So that was 2018?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And what made you want to go AGD?
I really wanted to expand my group of people, get more connected on campus, and the girls of Alpha Gamma Delta were so welcoming, so genuine, so engaging, and I knew that I could find my home there.
Oh, awesome. So you were an active member for about 2 semesters, I believe. What made you want to become chapter president? Is there a specific moment where you realized you would want to take on such a large role in the chapter?
Yeah, after we initiate, we actually have a celebration called Feast of Roses.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting at the table with my parents, and I was watching our current president at the time, Daisy, give a speech, and I just remember saying in my head, I'm going to do that one day. And so that was the moment.
That was your moment? Yeah. So you became president, and was it nerve-wracking? What was the scariest moment when you first started?
I think the scariest moment for me was probably the unknown. What was this leadership position going to entail?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the person that comes before you gives you a rundown of what to expect, but you never know to the extent of the things that you're going to deal with. So I think just that, and being a good president for every sister.
Was there something that you were expecting, were you expecting it to be easier than it is, or harder, or?
I was definitely expecting it to be a lot harder.
Okay.
And a lot easier. Different aspects, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult to manage and represent 120 people.
Mm-hmm.
So there was always that weight of
Yeah.
responsibility that definitely was a lot harder for me.
Did you have a lot of prior leadership experience before?
Yeah, so after I initiated, I jumped into our VP campus relations, so I worked with Pam Linnick closely, and then in high school I was ASB president of my high school.
Oh, wow. Are there any skills from that you think that you've used as chapter president, or stuff you've learned over time that has become helpful to you?
Definitely how to communicate with a lot of people and a lot of different people. That's definitely going to be a skill that I am going to carry into the future with me.
Yeah.
And time management.
Oh, yeah. Time
It's
management.
a huge thing.
It's a huge commitment.
Yeah.
So, and then, it's such a huge role. What's the most rewarding part for you? Is there something special that...
I think just being able to connect with everyone. Definitely being in the position I am, I have to know every single person in the chapter.
Yeah.
So just having that extra connection and bond with everyone is really rewarding.
Yeah. And on the contrary, what would you think is the most difficult part for you personally?
It's a thankless job.
Yeah.
So you don't get a lot of praise or appreciation, but everyone knows that going into it.
Yeah, makes sense. So this is a huge role, so it's probably set you up with a lot of leadership experience for after graduation. Do you have any idea of where you want to go or what you're going to do?
No, I'm in college to become a teacher, so I'll probably get my credential after, but this has opened my eyes to a lot of great opportunities, and so I'm just seeing where the wind takes me.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge role. I admire you for doing this at such a difficult time, but I'm sure it's really rewarding. Are you excited for the next year in recruitment? I know it's going to be a lot more difficult in the fall with a lot more going on.
Yeah,
Do you think you're ready to take that on?
Ready to take it on. I have a great team behind me, so we're hopeful.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, and I'm sure everyone learned a lot, so thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome back. This is Albert Coito with Comms Corner, and I'm here with Zachary Ormsby,
Hello.
president of Sonoma State Ultimate Frisbee Club. Zach, how you doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, man. So, for people at home who might not know too much about the sport, do you want to give us a little rundown of what Ultimate Frisbee is?
Yeah, so it's a conglomeration of pretty much basketball, football, and a little bit kind of similar to like field hockey. It's a non-contact sport, 7-on-7, highly competitive. It's a growing sport. I think it's in the top 3 growing sports right now in the country, so it's getting pretty big.
Awesome. And so, obviously, president, Sonoma State.
Yeah.
What are the duties that you have being president of a sports club?
Well, you're kind of like the main leader on the team. Take care of a lot of the paperwork and background stuff, but also on the field, kind of being that field general, giving people direction which to go and how they can improve.
And do you have any take on creating drills for the team?
Yeah, so I've played it for about like 5 years now. So from my experience, I've kind of developed my own way of developing players, but also I've taken new experiences from older players that I meet.
So you've been playing for 5 years. Does that mean you started in high school?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and how has that been? What's your experience been like over these last 5 years?
I felt like a sponge, just learning a bunch of new skills, also traveling to a bunch of new places, because in high school, didn't really travel the state too much, but playing the sports made me travel up and down the state, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so specifically more towards the Grapes of Wrath, that's the name of the team on campus. What has your experience been with them like so far this year?
It's been a blast. Every tournament we go to, every practice we play in, it's totally worth my time. It puts a big smile on my face seeing everyone improve, everyone out there having a fun time. So.
Speaking of your time, you are also a senior getting ready to graduate.
Yes, that's.
So how are you balancing that and managing this sports club team?
I'm not sure how I do that, but no, it takes a lot of time management. Every day I evaluate, or every week I evaluate what I have to do on each day, and I don't have too much free time, but when I do have that time, I just have fun. But it can be kind of hard at times. It's just having people around me kind of support me, which is really nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's always worth it, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
For something you love like that. And so a little bit more about the team, the Grapes of Wrath. What kind of teams do they end up playing throughout the season?
So we usually play against teams within the Northern California section, like San Jose State, Chico State, Cal Berkeley, Stanford. But also we have the opportunity to play teams from out of state, like Oregon, play against University of Nevada, Reno, played against a team from Colorado, and recently we played against a team that was from Missouri, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so we actually have 2 tournaments coming up, one in Long Beach and one in Sacramento.
That's correct.
Can you give us a little information on those?
Yeah, so the one in Long Beach taking place at the end of March, and that is the tournament leading up to our pretty much might be the last tournament of the year, which is called Sectionals. And it's pretty much like the first round of playoffs where all the teams in the section are able to participate. And if we do well enough, I think it's either top 7 or top 8 out of 12 or 13 teams. We move on to the next round of playoffs. You would say that would take place in the beginning of May, I think. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. And just one last little question for you. I hear you take your Frisbee with you wherever you go. Is that true?
Yeah. In my backpack, I always have a Frisbee, so... I think I've had a Frisbee in my backpack every day since freshman year, so.
Wow, and you just go out and toss with teammates?
Yeah, whenever I'm bored or just if anyone's free, I just go out there and toss.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you
really
for having
appreciate
me.
it. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
This has been Comms Corner with Albert. Get back to you later.
Alrighty, guys. Well, welcome back to Comms Corner. I'm here with Kaylee Ashwandon. She is a second-year comms student, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her filmmaking. So you've been, like I said, you're a second-year comms major. And so what made you start in filmmaking, at Sonoma State?
At Sonoma State, I wanted to explore my creative realms. I wanted to ensure that I would feel, creatively motivated. So ensuring that I had classes to push me to create more and want to do more on campus and be directly involved on campus as well was a really big motivator and the necessary action for me.
Awesome. What classes would you say, really got you into it, got you in the groove?
Definitely Studio Blue, which I'm currently enrolled in. It's kind of I lead a short film group in there, so I'm producing different contents with other students to just create things for people on campus, along with Talina's editing class. That was really fun. That was giving different prompts to me, and I could go which way, whatever I wanted with it, and that was really cool.
That's awesome. So I want to go back a little bit. How did you get started in filmmaking?
I've been doing photography with my mom. She's a at-home photographer. She has been doing that since I was 11, so I've always just been around the camera. My senior year, I did my final project on cinematography. I created a short documentary and entered it into a film festival and ended up winning some small little prizes, and I was like, well, maybe I should go off of this.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's actually great that you mentioned film festivals, because I was going to ask you a little bit about the CMF on campus, which is the Campus Movie Fest. So for those of us who aren't 100% sure what that is, could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, CMF is a annual film festival on campus. They produce, they let the students produce multiple different films, and they have to be under 5 minutes. It takes place every October on campus. And they supply you with all of the necessary equipment, so all of the camera gear, the editing gear. They have little workshops if necessary. It's a really inclusive and creative time.
That's awesome. And I had the pleasure of working on one of those films with you last year, or last semester. And so it was just crazy to see, because you get in a zone, and it's honestly just like, it's really impressive. So how would you say, you get yourself prepared for filming such like a big project?
Usually I take a lot of time to storyboard and create my ideas on paper, make sure that everything is sufficient and I can be as efficient as possible when it comes time to shooting. I also like to do table reads with my actors and actresses. My favorite thing right now is colors. I like to import colors into the scenes, and so that's really fun for me. I love going out of my way to include different colors into scenes.
That's awesome. What would you say are some of like your biggest conflicts that you've come across while working on short films, and specifically for CMF?
Right. Probably the timing. I'm having a lot of trouble trying to navigate how to create a story that's coherent enough and not abstract in a short time frame. But that's something that I have a lot of time now to begin to work on again.
That's awesome. Would you say that your past experiences in, Studio Blue and with working on films, before college, would you say that's helped elevate your, your filming for CMF?
I would say it has. I learn each year that as I do CMF, I learn different things that they might be looking for and reasons why, it might not have gone as far as I wanted.
Have you found like a niche thing that they're sort of looking for?
Yeah, they seem to really like comedies, which isn't my niche, if that makes sense. But it is something I'm beginning to explore, so I'm trying to get more comfortable with that.
Do you ever look towards sort of outside help for some of your films?
Yeah. I try and go to professors. I'm trying to go to people that have done CMF before and have been very successful in it, just asking for advice and what they might do.
That's awesome. So we're about to wrap up here, but I want to ask you one last question. For anyone who's interested in filmmaking and, honestly, any type of video editing, what would you say are your biggest tips to help them, progress in that?
Just do what you're comfortable with. Explore different aspects of film that you're interested in. Mine is color. I really enjoy the colors in films. And just study. Just watch a bunch of movies. That's the best way to do it.
Awesome. All right. And so, real quick, sorry, one last question. So the next CMF is coming up next year, correct? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Have you already started working on anything?
I have, yeah. Been storyboarding, been location scouting, and trying to find some actors and actresses.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, I look forward to seeing that next year, and I hope all of you guys look forward to seeing that too. Alrighty. And we will see you guys next time.
Hello and welcome to Comms Corner. I am Anthony Plotty here with Caden Yazitsky, music producer and audio engineer. He's worked with the likes of artists such as Mr. Fab, E40, Neff the Pharaoh, and you were just in LA last week with T Grizzly. Tell me more about that.
I was just going there for like a work trip, networking, and I was lucky enough. I was just crossing paths with him. I was actually just walking down the street, and I was like, "Wait, you're T Grizzly? They got the big old chains on, like $100,000 chains," and I'm like, "You can't pass that up." So stopped and talked with him, and I got a picture, of course, and then we just, I gave him like a business card, and we linked up at the studio actually the same night because he got a business card. I mean, he looked professional, so linked up at the studio with him, and then that was really that with him. And yeah, that was all that with him. But I was just out there doing some networking, doing some studio sessions, and that's pretty much it for out there.
Awesome. So what was your inspiration to get into music?
So what a lot of people don't know is me and Anthony actually started in his garage, or his back shed house, about 6 years ago. We were just recording ourselves. And then how the engineering came about is I didn't like my own music or anything, because I'm a perfectionist. So I would drop my own songs, and people would like them, but I didn't like them. So I stopped making my own music, and I switched into audio engineering, because that's more like editing and like a software related. So I got into that, and I just focused in, I tuned in, and that's just more like my field of work compared to being like front and center, being on stage, being behind camera, and just more detailed and just more. It's easier for me. That's what it's just a lot easier for me than trying to produce my own music. I like working with other artists because I like their music a lot better.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So
I think the most important thing really is to just put the egos aside and be open to working with a bunch of different artists, and really, like, if you want to do something, you actually have to do it. You can't just talk about it. Like, you got to wake up, play the part, and that's what people recognize, and that's what's gotten me from here to there.
So would that be your one piece of advice? Like, if someone's coming up, asks you for one piece of advice, what's that one piece of advice that you give them besides put in the work?
Besides putting in the work, I mean, that's be able to get along with everybody. Like, I work with a lot of artists who, like, they're not my type of people. Like, I wouldn't go and hang out with them, but I can definitely work with them and just.
Good morning and welcome to Comms Corner. My name is Hunter Gennari, and I have the honor and privilege of welcoming Josh Hanna. Thanks for joining me. He is an avid fisherman and former president of the fishing club here at Sonoma State. So I want to learn quick, begin at the beginning. What got you into fishing, and is there like an experience that you knew that this would be a lifelong hobby of yours?
Yeah, so I started fishing when I was around 3 years old. It was something for my father and I to do on the weekends for us to get closer to each other. And from, that point on, as I grew up, I started fishing with a neighborhood buddy of mine. And we had a creek that ran alongside our house. Yeah. And every day after school, we would go fish at the creek.
Awesome.
And from that point on, I stuck with it.
Very cool. And how old were you when you caught your first fish or went on your first fishing outing?
I would say around 3.
Awesome. And so I think there's a common misconception that fishing is sort of an easy thing where you throw out a line and just reel it in. Can you maybe elaborate on some of the difficulties that you may face while fishing?
Yeah, so there are multiple different types of fishing. Trout fishing is more of, there's different forms of trout fishing. There's stream and there's lake, and then there's bass fishing. And what I do is I bass fish. I actually tournament bass fish. Cool. And to give you kind of an example, I'll have anywhere from 15 to 30 rods on my boat, all with different lures and different things that have different presentations. Mm-hmm. And the objective is to try and get the fish to eat, your lure. You don't just cast it out, drink a beer, or have a soda and wait for them to grab your bait. You're trying to, it's like a psychology of trying to think about why they're doing what they're doing, why they're in the depths that they're in, why they eat what they eat, and position of where they are. So it's a challenge, and that's why I like it.
And is some of the techniques playing to like the time of year? Like, would you use a different technique if you're fishing when it's cold or versus when it's summer?
Yeah, so for largemouth bass, the time of the year matters a lot. During the winter times, their metabolism slows down a lot, so real lethargic. They only eat typically one time a week, so they're looking for, a bigger meal, and they don't want to move very fast, or they don't want to move a lot to eat. So you want to present it to them really slow. In the summertime, they're more active and they eat better, so you can fish a little bit faster.
Very cool. And can you pinpoint a most memorable moment when fishing? Maybe the biggest fish, or maybe there's just an adrenaline rush during a fishing trip that you could.
Yeah. So one of the tournaments that we did, Sonoma State competed against other colleges, Chico State, Cal Poly. I mean, guys from Washington State, everywhere came to the Delta, and me and my partner represented Sonoma State, and we actually won the tournament.
Awesome.
So that was really fun.
And so, where do you plan to take this hobby in the future? Do you want to compete in larger scale tournaments, or be able to teach people like fishing in a more official capacity or something?
Yeah, I plan on, the goal is to get a job when I graduate, because fishing's a very expensive hobby, especially when you do tournaments. Tournament entry fees are not cheap.
Yeah.
But I plan on, fishing professionally when I graduate, and that's the goal.
Very cool. And so, if someone's watching today and has never fished before, what advice would you give them to begin? Is there licenses, or what would be a good first step to get into the hobby?
I would go on YouTube and just look up what kind of fishing you're interested in. And there's plenty of videos that'll teach you techniques and, kind of what to do.
Very cool. So it was an honor to learn about fishing and your journey throughout the hobby. So thank you for joining us at Comms Corner. This was Josh Hanna.
Thanks to those who stayed.
All right. Good morning and welcome to Comms Corner. My name is Hunter Gennari, and I have the honor and privilege of welcoming Josh Hanna. Thanks for joining me. He is an avid fisherman and former president of the fishing club here at Sonoma State. So I want to learn quick. Begin at the beginning. What got you into fishing, and is there like an experience that you knew that this would be a lifelong hobby of yours?
Yeah, so I started fishing when I was around 3 years old. It was something for my father and I to do on the weekends, for us to get closer to each other. And from that point on, as I grew up, I started fishing with a neighborhood buddy of mine. And we had a creek that ran alongside our house, and every day after school we would go fish at the creek.
Awesome.
And from that point on, I stuck with it.
Very cool. And how old were you when you caught your first fish or went on your first fishing outing?
I would say around 3.
Awesome. And so I think there's a common misconception that fishing is sort of an easy thing where you throw out a line and just reel it in. Can you maybe elaborate on some of the difficulties that you may face while fishing?
Yeah, so there are multiple different types of fishing. Trout fishing is more of, there's different forms of trout fishing. There's stream and there's lake, and then there's bass fishing. And what I do is I bass fish. I actually tournament bass fish. And to give you kind of an example, I'll have anywhere from 15 to 30 rods on my boat, all with different lures and different things that have different presentations. And the objective is to try and get the fish to eat, your lure. You don't just cast it out, drink a beer, or have a soda and wait for them to grab your bait. It's like a psychology of trying to think about why they're doing what they're doing, why they're in the depths that they're in, why they eat what they eat, and position of where they are. So it's a challenge, and that's why I like it.
And is some of the techniques playing to like the time of year? Like, would you use a different technique if you're fishing when it's cold or versus when it's summer?
Yeah, so for largemouth bass, the time of the year matters a lot. During the winter times, their metabolism slows down a lot, so they're real lethargic. They only eat typically one time a week, so they're looking for a bigger meal, and they don't want to move very fast, or they don't want to move a lot to eat. So you want to present it to them really slow. In the summertime, they're more active and they eat better, so you can fish a little bit faster.
Very cool. And can you pinpoint a most memorable moment when fishing? Maybe the biggest fish, or maybe there's just an adrenaline rush during a fishing trip that you could?
Yeah. So one of the tournaments that we did, Sonoma State competed against other colleges, Chico State, Cal Poly. I mean, guys from Washington State, everywhere came to the Delta, and me and my partner represented Sonoma State, and we actually won the tournament. So
Awesome.
that was really fun.
And so, where do you plan to take this hobby in the future? Do you want to compete in larger scale tournaments, or be able to teach people like fishing in a more official capacity or something?
Yeah, I plan on, the goal is to get a job when I graduate because fishing is a very expensive hobby, especially when you do tournaments. Tournament entry fees are not cheap.
Yeah.
But I plan on, fishing professionally when I graduate, and that's the goal.
Very cool. And so, if someone's watching today and has never fished before, what advice would you give them to begin? Is there licenses, or what would be a good first step to get into the hobby?
I would go on YouTube and just look up what kind of fishing you're interested in. And there's plenty of videos that'll teach you techniques and, kind of what to do.
Very cool. So it was an honor to learn about fishing and your journey throughout the hobby. So thank you for joining us at Comms Corner. This was Josh Hanna.